So I've been using Convex now for the last month or two, and it's just been a phenomenal developer experience. Convex is the backend platform that keeps your app in sync. So one of the biggest things to know is that Convex is not your traditional MySQL or Postgres or Mongo database. They've got their own in-house database that they built, which I think is really cool and allows them to do a lot of stuff that other backend platforms can't provide. They also have server functions. It's an ACID database. They can do vector search across it. You can run cron jobs. They've got file storage, automatic caching, strong consistency, real-time updates, type safety, framework integration. So what I want to do is I built out a little CRM, or what I'm calling a CRM here. If we go on over to localhost right here, essentially I've got a Tanstack application, and it loads up a handful, about 10 companies or so. And then each company, when you click on them, you can see view a list of contacts, and then it's got some paginated search to go along with it too. So when you click to the next pages, you can see that there's a quick flash of like a loading screen real quick, but then once it resolves, it renders all the contacts. And then similar to the way that React Query works is that once the data is already in the browser, it's in memory, then it will instantly render it since it no longer has to go out. We've got your standard CRUD operation, so I can delete this stuff pretty quickly, and then I can also add a contact. And then if I go ahead and add the phone number, add, you can see that that instantly added. And you can see all this stuff is in real time. And to prove my point, I will go on over here to the contacts, and you can see here's the contact that I created just now. And here's something really awesome. Not that you would ever change the database values in production, but here's a test. So if I just update this, click save, and I go back on over to my application, you can see that I did not do a refresh or anything. The changes were automatically pushed to me in real time, which is awesome. So as I mentioned, this was a Tanstack application. I just ran pm create Tanstack Start, and that got me just a demo application. While you run this, it does ask you if you want to integrate with Clerk, and I selected yes. And when you do that here, it just sets up the provider for you based upon the environment variables that you provide when you create your Convex account. And if you go into the root down here, it's just got the context provider around everything. So just letting you know how that's set up right there. But what we're going to focus on here, not the Tanstack Start portion here, that's a tutorial for another day, but we've got this Convex directory. So one important thing to note is that when you are running a Convex application, you're actually probably going to need two servers, one for your front end. So I'm running Tanstack over here, the web server, and then the other one is we're going to run npx convex dev. So this kicks up the Convex server itself. It's going to go through, run TypeScript checks on everything, make sure everything's kosher. And it does code generation as well too. So whenever you're making modifications to your backend or your schema, it will make sure that all of your types are updated in real time. So whenever you're starting a new Convex application, or you're just jumping into an existing one, where you're probably going to want to start here is a schema.ts. Okay, and this is what defines your actual database schema. So if you're coming from, say, Prisma, you've got your schema.prisma file, but that's not JavaScript, that's not TypeScript at all. This is one of the nice things about Convex is that everything is TypeScript based. So it's just code that you're used to writing, and they've got their own client libraries to help you with that, and they're all very well documented. So what we've got here, very straightforward, is we are defining a table right here of companies, and a company's got a name. Convex, they automatically generate a created at and a UID for each record, so we don't have to specify that at all. And then we've got a contacts table, which is just a few different fields right here, an optional address, but the other fields are required, and then a company ID. One of the things you'll note is that it uses v.id to indicate it's a foreign key to another table here. And then we're specifying some indexes here. I don't think we're using the email one at all, at least at this point, but we are using the by company ID, and I will get to that one shortly. And then once you're done, you're just going to go ahead and define your schema. When you do that and you're running the npm or npx convex dev, is that if you go on over to your database, is it's automatically deploying those changes from your schema up here immediately. Along with that, it also deploys any server-side functions that you've got as well too. So if I go to functions, I'll hop into the source code of this shortly, but you'll see that we've got, these are the available functions that we've got for you. And then it just gives you some stats around it, the code for it, and then the log. So it really does a great job of giving you all the information that you need in terms of just local development, but also once you get in production, you can really start to debug and get the logs and stats to see on how well each serverless function is performing for you. So going back to the code here, now that you've got an understanding of how, companies, they've got many contacts. Let's go see what that actually looks like. So in order to set up some backend API calls, what you're going to want to do is just create a file, whatever makes sense for you, and just export the functions. For right now, we're just going to focus on mutations and queries. So mutations, if you're writing any kind of data to the database, you're going to use a mutation. If you're querying any data from the database, you're just going to write queries. So these are built-in functions coming from the generated server right here. And so create company is going to take an argument name, which is a string. And then this is every time that you pass in the validator here, this is always required unless you do a vita optional and wrap it around that way. Okay. And when you do that, you can see that the types are automatically updated here. It's saying that when you want to insert a company, that the name must be defined. So that's pretty cool. We've got strong type safety there. But yeah, so when you're calling this function, the args need to validate first. If they don't, it'll throw an error. If they are validated, then you get to the handler. And then we've got this context object, and then attached to that is the database. And then we're calling insert, and then the table name, and then the actual arguments themselves. So the nice thing about this is that this is all updated in real time. So if I do ctx.db.insert, okay, I can specify which table that I want. And to show you how quickly this works when you're doing local development, so if I just do const to-dos, name completed, and I export that, and now I go on over to here, data. You can see I did have to-dos there before. This I was testing previously, I had a little asterisk before it or after it. That was because I deleted it. Now I've added it back here. So you can see that the schema is already, or the table is already defined right here in the database. So now we just need to add some content to it if we wanted to. But we're just doing this for demo purposes. So now if I go back here, you can see that to-dos is part of the options that I've got. And then if I want to do some autocomplete, it'll show me that completed and name are the fields that I could insert there. So the second that you update this over here, or within a second or two, it'll automatically regenerate the code down here. That's what the npx convex dev does. Updates the types, and then everything is updated that way. So that's how you create a company. In terms of querying, if we want to list all of the companies, then you just do a query. Arguments are just blank here because we're not filtering on anything. And then once again, you just do ctx.db query and then just the name of the companies or the name of the table, and then we're going to collect all of them and return them. And then the very last thing here is if you want to get just a specific company, the args we're going to pass in is the VID. Once again, the ID specifies the table that you want to query. And here's the cool thing is that when you just run a ctxdb.get and it knows that it's an ID with a generic of companies, it knows exactly which table to get it from and will return the type correctly. So now that you've got the backend all set up and these are the different functions that you have, basically just RPC functions, you can then go into the front end and consume that data. So we're going to go ahead and go into routes, companies, and index. And as you saw earlier, this is, let's just make sure we're on the same page here. So what we're looking at right now is just a list of companies right here. So if I go back on over to cursor, we're just going to do a use query, and this use query comes from Convex React. And then we've got this API. The API is what gets generated in this Convex generated API directory here. So as I mentioned, many times now, anytime you make updates to your backend, it's going to automatically be reflected in these types. So and this is all autocomplete safe. So we've got the companies and we just want to do a list. Okay, and then it tells you right there is that we're either going to get an array of companies back or it's going to be undefined. Undefined is basically when it's still loading. Okay, so we go ahead and run that data. So if we don't have any companies, then it just says loading companies. If the length of it is 0, then we have no companies yet. And then finally, if we get companies, you can see when I hover on over it is that we've got the ID and creation time. These are automatically built into Convex for you. And then you've got the name. So we're going to go ahead and render that. And then we've got a link to the actual company page. So when I go back to, let's click on this one right here. So now we're loading all the different contacts for them. Let's see what the backend looks like for contacts. Okay. So to get contacts, we're doing a list, and then we're going to pass in the company ID because we want to get the contact just for the company ID. And then they also have this paginated options validator that is built in directly to Convex. So they've got cursor-based pagination already built into this. You just need to pass in the actual variables for it. So once those args are all good, whoa, 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 you're going crazy there, cursor. Okay. So once the args are good, then you're going to go ahead and we get to the handler. We're on the database. We're going to query contacts. Once again, this could be any table. Okay, so it does give you the autocomplete there. And oops, we want that to be contacts. And then this is where things get a little bit different. If you're used to SQL or using Prisma, a lot of times it'll just do the index automatically for you. But for this, for Convex, we need to specify the index that we want to use. So we're going to say that we want to do it by company ID. Okay, so you specify that, and then it gives you an anonymous function with a query builder. And then we're just going to say where the company ID, which is the field right there, is equal to the arguments of the company ID where it comes in. And we're going to order by descending. That automatically orders by created at date. And then you just pass in the, you chain that together with the paginate function and pass in the paginated options. So what does this look like on the front end now? So if we go to company right here, okay, the one that we're going to be looking at here is this use paginated query, which comes from Convex React, okay, and you're going to pass in the API again. You're going to pass in which function you want to call, okay? And then we've got the arguments right here. And I might have lied a little bit earlier when I said it was 100% type safe. This is not necessarily a Convex issue as much as it is, I guess, just working with the web in general, is that we're getting the route params from Tanstack Start, okay, and the company ID. So we know that this is going to be a string because we're getting it from the current route, and we just need to cast that string into the ID of companies. So that's probably the only time that I've experienced that you actually have to do some type casting. Things might not be 100% safe, but I think you can live. So we cast that to company ID, and then we've got the initial number of items, and which is the page size right here. The use paginated query returns the results, the status as well too, and you can see those are the different status options that we have, and then we have a load more, which is number of items that we want to load. To go along with that, we also have a create contact and remove contact. So similar to use query, we've also got the use mutation. And all this does is you just pass in the API function or the RPC that you want to call, wrap it in and use mutation. And now you can just call this later on down. So if we want to create a contact, this is going to be fully type safe. As you can see, it's got all the information that is required there. So we got type safety end to end, and then delete. What was that? Remove contact. Remove contact. You're just passing in the ID, and how that works on the back end. Pretty straightforward. We're just doing some CRUD operations. So create. We're just going to go ahead and use the mutation wrapper right here. Specify the args, and then we just do a insert, and then for delete, we're going to go ahead and just run a delete right there. As I mentioned before, when you've got the ID specified, you do not need to specify the table. You can just say delete and give it an ID, and then it's good to go. Aside from that, there's some React table that we've got just for rendering stuff and taking care of the pagination. But I mean, there's nothing too terribly crazy there. That's Convex in a nutshell. Next video, I'll probably go into a little bit of some of the nuances around Convex. While I think it's been a phenomenal developer experience so far, there's a lot of things that SQL or Postgres or a lot of the mature databases out there, they provide for you out of the box that you manually have to do with Convex. So I'll touch on those a little bit in the next one, but hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, thumbs up, be greatly appreciated.